Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. 3 Chinese nationals with connections to the University of Michigan have been arrested and accused of smuggling and other crimes. Joining me to dig into this is Elise Apel, reporter for the Center Square. Elise, can you tell us more about these suspects and what they're accused of?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Eliana. Yeah, so this is actually the 3rd arrest we had announced this week on Monday. That student was actually a graduate student at a university in Wuhan. All 3 arrests were of Chinese nationals that were then in the U.S., actually in Michigan, and they came in through the Detroit airport there. Last week, there was the FBI announced 2 arrests. One was a graduate student at the University of Michigan, and they are charged with conspiracies, smuggling goods, and false statements to authorities. And so this is just, authorities have called this a really alarming pattern of foreign nationals bringing biological material into the U.S. To study, or who knows what to do with. And that's really their concern as well. The 2 arrests that were made last week, one of those was of a graduate student at the University of Michigan. The other one is actually of her boyfriend, who was also in the U.S., and they were all here on different visas.
And you mentioned there's some concerns specifically about what they smuggled in. Can you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the arrest that was made this week, the authorities said that it was just of biological materials related to roundworm. So it's a little unclear kind of the risks associated with that. The arrests that were made last week was actually for smuggling in what authorities called a dangerous biological pathogen. And it's actually a fungus which causes something called head blight that really affects grains like wheat, barley, maize, or rice. And according to the FBI, that fungus disease is actually responsible for billions of dollars of economic losses worldwide, and it can also cause illness to animals and humans, actually. So there's obviously a lot of concern for authorities that these foreign nationals are bringing in this material to the U.S., ostensibly to study at the University of Michigan without the school's knowledge.
And this comes as some people in Congress, as well as the Michigan legislature, have floated ideas about limiting foreign students.
Yeah, so this Chinese national that was arrested this week, like I mentioned, had connections to a Wuhan university. She was actually here on a visa for studying, but it's a little unclear where she was studying. If she was going to be studying at the University of Michigan, they haven't announced that information yet. But yeah, there's definitely been growing concerns about these Chinese nationals coming into the U.S., studying at American universities, and then maybe either stealing our information or bringing in these kind of dangerous pathogens to study in the U.S. that could then, harm our crops or harm our people even. And so that's obviously a growing concern. Of the arrests that were made last week, the criminal complaint actually said that one of those had very close ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and it had even received funding from the Chinese government to study that specific fungus that she then smuggled into the U.S. So obviously lots of concerns there. The federal legislature and different state legislatures have kind of taken steps with proposing legislation to kind of try to address these concerns and try to address the Chinese foreign nationals from coming into the U.S. In particular, some foreign legislation actually would ban visas for all students from China. So obviously lots of growing concern. Lots of Republican leadership has come out and said this, that they said that they would support this legislation. The Democrats have been a little bit quieter on it. But as actually U.S. Representative Lisa McClain said, who is a representative from Michigan, but also the chairwoman of the House GOP. She called it a major national security threat. So this is obviously a major concern for many of our leaders.
Yeah, and I suppose it's probably more likely if there is any movement on this subject that it would happen at a federal level than at the state level because of just the Democrat control in Michigan.
Right, yeah. The Senate and the governorship are both controlled by Democrats. So even if the House were to pass legislation, and House Republicans, of course, have been vocal in calling for Democrats to support this, but even if it were to pass the House, it would be unlikely to actually make any movement through the Senate. So yeah.
Well, Elise, thank you for your insight on this story. I'm sure we'll continue to follow it if there are any developments. You can follow this story and more at thecentersquare.com.